An example would be given that f of x is this one here, and I don't know, h of x being this one here. We're just going to do one of these, okay? We'll do h after f of x. H after f of x is also known as h f of x. Now guys, anybody in the class had to tell me how to do this? Okay. What's the rule for h? Whatever h is, you take away 5. And what does it say h is for this question? H is whatever f of x is. So what is f of x? 3x plus 2. So in the gap we replace it with 3x plus 2. Okay. So 3x plus 2 minus 5, okay? So 2 minus 5, anybody? 3x minus 3. Right, that's how you do one of these. I'll show you a more difficult version now. Another example would be f g of minus 2. F after g of minus 2 also can be written as fg minus 2. What does that mean? You look at the number and you work left. So what do we do first? G first. G is the rule, whatever it is, add on 7. Now see G, whatever it is, add on 7. So we said it's minus 2 here, which is minus 2 plus 7, which is 5. Now see this G minus 2 business, it now gets replaced with 5, because we're just after saying G minus 2 is 5. Now what's the rule for F? Whatever it is, square it and add on 2. So whatever it is, square it, add on 2. So 5 squared plus 2, anybody? 27, right? So look, there's some easy marks for you, okay? Now let's find out how to do the more difficult one, which is where the big marks will be going, okay? So, how would you go about doing a more difficult version of this, okay? So, what's asking you is, it goes f after g of x, also known as f g of x. Now, start off with what's in the bracket. So what do we have to do first? What do we do first, guys? Do g of x. There's no subbing in this time because we're not given any real numbers to play around with. So, what'd you say? Yeah, but we're told it's x, so it has to say it's x plus 7. So it's f of x plus 7. Now what's the rule for f again? Whatever it is, square it and add on. What is it? It's x plus 7 this time. X plus 7 is in here. Therefore x plus 7 has to go in there. Has to be the same thing. So it's going to be x plus 7 squared plus 2. Which is going to get me x plus 7 multiplied by x plus 7 plus 2. Then once we're done with that, multiply it out. X squared after that, 7x after that, and then after that, 49 plus your 2, and then you might be asked x squared plus x plus 51. Now, have I already done? Sorry? Do you have to solve it or just? Do I have to solve it? No, it doesn't say solve. It just says find an expression. Okay. Now, guys, does anybody remember when I did this first one? What did I get again? G of minus 2 was 5. It was f5 equals 27. Do you remember I did the first part, one part at a time? I used the minus 2 in the G formula, and then whatever answer I got, I used in the F formula. Now look what happens this time around. Yeah, look what happens this time around. Imagine I wanted to use minus 2 this time. So remember, this whole thing is an expression for, this whole thing here, that I'm just after underlining, is an expression for f g of x, yeah? Earlier in the question, I already got the answer for f g of, and I knew that the answer was 27. Now, by this logic, if I replace x with minus 2, what should happen? I should get 27 as my answer, okay, because it's the same thing. So let's see if that actually happens. So this answer here is f g of x. Let's replace it with minus 2 and see if we get 27. So we're going to now do f g of minus 2 all in one go. Instead of working out for one of them and inserting the answer to the second one, we're going to do it all in one go and see if it works out. My answer would be yes. It's going to be 55 minus 28. That's a 4. 4 plus 51 is 55. Minus 2 times 14 is minus 28. And that gives you the answer of 27. So it worked both ways. Okay, just read over that tonight before the exam, okay? Now, let's move on. This one here is very interesting, right? It's partial differentiation. So, what we have is we have a couple of points, okay? C35, 3.2, 6.24, 3.1, 5.61, 3.04, 5.2416. Now, first of all, if you are wondering, I've never seen decimals like that in any of these questions. You're right. Okay. Second thing is, what can you tell me about all the x values? What number are they always really close to? 3. They're all really close to 3. Can anybody in the class tell me, now A is the point where x is 3. Would anybody agree with that? Can anybody tell me what happens when you differentiate once and you replace in x equals 3? What happens? Sorry? You get the slope, don't you? So the slope of A should be something like this here. It's a tangent, isn't it? So it's only allowed to hit once. So it should be should be something like that, shouldn't it? In that direction there. Now, what we're asked to do is we're asked to find out the slope of AB. Now, does anybody see the slope of AB? It's much steeper than the slope that we want. Would everybody agree with that? Okay. So what happens when we get the slope of AB? Okay, so AB is a generic y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we have to get the slope of AB using the slope formula because it's in between 2 points. Okay, so call that x2 y2, call that x1 y1. We're going to get 6.24 minus 5 divided by 3.2 minus 3. That is going to turn into 1.24. What's it? 1.24 divided by 0.2. And just put it all in the calculator. And we're going to get a slope of 6.2. As I said, that 6.2 is a much steeper slope than the one we're actually looking for. Now let me try another one. What happens with AC, guys? AC. Let's try AC now. So how do you do AC? That's x2, y2. Same slope again. So this is the slope of AC, once again using the same formula. We're going to have is 4.61 minus 5 all divided by 3.1 minus 3. It's going to be, what's it, 1.61 divided by, I'll say 0.61, is it? Yeah, so 0.61 on the top, and on the bottom, we're going to have 0.1. We're going to press equals. This time the slope is 6.1. So it's a shallower, the slope we got this time around, I'll put it in green. We got the slope of AC, didn't we? So the green slope is slightly shallower than the black slope that came before it. Not by much, but by a little bit. So that's 6.1. Now look what happens when we do the slope of AD. Okay, we're now going to try the slope of AD. And what would you say about the slope of AD? It's much closer to what we're looking for, isn't it? The real slope of x equals 3. So let's try the slope of AD out. Slope AD. Okay guys, so the slope of AD is going to be, what's D? D is 3.04. So it's going to be 3.04 minus 3. Oh sorry, the y values, excuse me. The y values are 4.52416. 5.2416, take away 5, all divided by 3.04, take away 3. Now let's see what the slope is this time. Okay, so what's it going to be? 0.2416 divided by 0.04, and this time the slope is 6.04. Okay, so 6.04. What's happening every time? Sorry? It's getting smaller. So when we did AD it was 6.2, when we did AC it was 6.1, and when we did AD it was 6.04. Now look at this, guys. Okay, let's go back to our original graph. Okay, now what can you tell me? I'll just bring it down actually, just makes it easier. Okay, what can you tell me is happening from AB to AC? See this point here, B? It gets closer to A every time, doesn't it? C is closer to A, and then D is closer to A. Imagine what happens next time when we have a where we have a point that's really close to it. What will happen then? Sorry? What will happen to the slope? It'll get shallower again, and it'll get closer to the differentiated value we're going to get. Can anybody make a wild guess at what you think the differentiated value is going to be? Who said 6? Yeah, I reckon it'll turn out to be 6. Let's find out. Okay, it asks you to find the first derivative. What is the first derivative in differentiation again? What's another word for the first derivative? Slope. So slope equals first derivative. First derivative, differentiate x squared minus 4, anybody? 2x. And now we're going to find the slope at x equals 3. What happens when we replace in that 3 for 2 times 3 equals 6. What's the lesson you've learned here today? The lesson is, if you want to find the slope at A, yeah, and if you take any other point on the graph, such as B, that will give you an approximation of the slope. However, the closer you choose the second point to your original point A, the more accurate your result will be. Out of the 3 points B, C, and D, which one was the closest to 6? D. Why was it that one is the closest value? Because it's the point that's closest to A. If I set up a point E even closer, what would happen then? The slope of that line would be even closer to the number. Sorry? It'll be even closer to number 6. That's the lesson from this. You'll need to, once again, look over it again. Okay? Now, let's move on. This one here, I haven't done one of these. Ones very. You're just going to have to copy it out and draw it. Okay. Now, in your test, you're not asked specifically to do 1 centimeter to 4 meters or anything like that. So we'll just draw it as normal. Okay. So what's the first thing you do when you see a question like this? A research student stands at the top of a window of the building where he works and fires a projectile into the air such that it's high above the ground. At time t seconds after firing is given by this formula. What type of shape is that? If you were to draw that graph out, what shape are you dealing with? How did you know it was n-shaped? Minus 5t squared. So what goes up comes back down again. Okay? So when you draw this, you're going to have height versus time. First thing we're going to do is put it into the calculator. And it is how to put this into the calculator. 8 plus 22x, we're using x instead of t, minus 5. Please remember, there's really easy marks here. Just by doing something like that and writing down all the points. Start at 0, end at 5. Okay, step of 1. Everybody happy with those points? Can somebody just let somebody else do it on their calculator so we can know all the points? So 0, 8, 125, 232. 0, 8, 125 and 232. Everybody happy with that? Okay, what comes after that then? 329, 416 and 5 minus 7. 329. Was it 416? Anybody after that? 5 minus 7. Okay. Now, your x-axis is, you have to go from 0 to, so you have to go from minus 7 all the way to 32. Now, what's the difference between minus 7 and 32? How many blocks in the difference is there? If you go from minus 7 over this side of 0, and then 0 is here, and then 32 is all the way over here, how many are you talking about? And 39 is very close to 40. Okay, so take that you need a range of 40. Okay, do a count on how many blocks we have. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, right? So 20, that's a bit of an awkward number, isn't it? So I'd say use 20 of your blocks and use them worth 2 each. That makes sense? Because you have 40, you need to go through a gap of 40. Using 20 is really easy because each block will be worth 2 then. Okay? So here's what I'm going to do with you. I'm going to count up in 2s now instead of 1s. So 2, there we go, like this. Now once I've done that, we're going to start at the lowest value. What's the lowest value again? Minus 7, okay? Now instead of using minus 7, we're going to use minus 8. Anybody tell me why? You're going in 2s. You can't use 7's an odd number, minus 8's an even number. Now that's minus 6, the next one. Minus 4, 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32. Do you see the way it's gone up in 4s? But each block is technically worth 2. Because in between 32 and 28 is 30. I just haven't written it down yet. Now that we've done that, what we can next do is that this here is that in black there, and then going across at 0. You got to label your axis. What is the y-axis in this question? Anybody? Height. And what's height measured in? Height's measured in meters. Anybody the x-axis? Time. And we're going to measure that in seconds. Okay. Now I'm going to count across I'm going to make a big gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to start drawing. So what's my first point again? 0, 8, easy to draw. After that, 125, go up to 24 and go halfway between 24 and 26. After that, 232. 232 is there. And after that, 329. What you know is about the top, guys? What you know is about the top? Is it symmetrical? Yeah, but is it the same both sides? So what that means is that that middle point isn't necessarily your highest point. So here's what we're going to do instead. You go back to your calculator. Once you recognize this has happened to you, you press equals. You start, you end, but instead of going up in 1s, you're going to go up in 0.5s, and you're going to have a look in between 2 and 3. Okay, what happens in between 2 and 3? 232, that's grand. Well, there you go. It is actually the highest point, but it's just not a, what's that word? See the way 1.5 is, 1.5 be roughly 29, isn't it? So 1.5 is 29, so you could just do an extra spot just to help you draw the graph, like that. And then I can figure out what 2.5 is to make the whole thing easier. So 2.5 is 31.75, yeah? So 31.75 being just basically just underneath that. So I actually say it rises ever so slightly and then back down again. Okay. What other points do we need? We need to find out what the number 4 is. 416. Where's 416? 416 is here. And then finally 5 minus 7. Is 5 minus 7 possible in this question? Well, let's read the language. Such a way to at the time, 2 seconds before you give a formula, right? So we've done that question. Don't mind about the scale business. Okay. So we've drawn the height. Now, what are you guys expecting the maximum height to be? 32. Is there another way in differentiation to find the maximum height? Otherwise known as maximum. How do you find that maximum? That's maximum, anybody? First derivative. Okay, so what's the first derivative of 8 plus 22t minus 5t squared, anybody? 22 minus 10t. What is this formula referring to? It will give you the slope at any point you want. Do you understand that? You choose a value for t, and it will give you, so if I chose t equals 1, it would give me the slope of that line there just after drawing. If I chose t equals 4, it would give me the slope of this line here I just drew. Okay? So it depends on what you choose. Now what do we know at the maximum, guys? What happens to the slope at the maximum?
0.
Slope is 0. So we have to find out when the slope is 0. So when is the slope 0? 10t equals 2t equals 2.2. So we're claiming the maximum happens at 2.2. Remember I told you something was up? Do you remember? See the way in between 2 and 2.5? It goes from 32 down to 3.75, yeah? What we don't realise is that in between 2 and 2.5, that's where the maximum actually occurred. Okay? The only way to be dead certain about this is to use differentiation. Now that we know the time is 2.2, how do we find the height this happens at? What you do? Sub it back in. Your height equals 8 plus 22 times whatever your time is, minus 5 times whatever your time is, squared. What is the time for this particular part of the question? Huh? 2.2. That's another 2.2. You get your calculator, enter it all in. So modes. So you're going to get 8 plus 22 times 2.2 minus 5 times 2.2 squared. Oh wait, that's wrong. And then what happens next? Our maximum height is 32.2, above 32 meters, okay? So h equals 32.2 meters. Okay, done. From your graph, estimate correct to 1. Now, what's the key word here, guys? From your graph, estimate correct to 1 decimal place the time at which the projectile hits the ground. When does the projectile hit the ground? What happens to your height when you've hit the ground? H is 0. You have no height above the ground when you're on the ground. When is H worth 0? It's worth 8, it's worth 24, it's worth 32, it's worth 16. Sorry. I drew this. I was meant to go, I wasn't meant to go for that. I was meant to go down there, wasn't I? Would you agree with that? So what do you reckon? 4.7. 4.7. Now, is there any way you could check that on your calculator? Have a look again. You could just find out roughly where it goes to 0. I'm not putting that in again. So it's from your graph anyway. So we say t equals 4.7 because this is where your height equals 0 because you have no height above the ground. Finally, explain the physical significance of the number 8 in the formula 8. Alright, who said that? It's the height of the building. At t equals 0, what is your height? That means that when you threw your object, you were 8 meters off the ground to begin with. That makes sense? And once you do that, you can find out what your height was. I'm going to add in one other question for this, okay? And here's the question I'm going to add in. Can anyone in the class tell me how do you find what speed was the projectile going after 4 seconds? First of all, is it going to be a plus answer or a minus answer? Is it on its way up or its way down? It reaches its peak at around 2.2 and now it's on its way down. So at 4 seconds in, you're on your way downwards. What is the speed formula again? Speed. What? the differentiated one. What's the differentiated one again? 22 minus 10t. Now, this 22 minus 10t, what do I have to replace t with? So speed or slope equals 22 minus 10 times 4. What's the answer then? Minus 18 meters per second. Is that the answer we're expecting? Negative answer? Because that's way down. Okay, lads.